All right, and welcome to the Planet X podcast, post Snowpocalypse edition. I'm Chris.
And I'm Mike, coming to you from below 90 feet below the snowy surface. My fucking phone ringing and the goddamn intro.
God damn it, Michael.
God damn it. Dude, talk amongst yourselves.
And with us again this week, because we had so much fun 2 weeks ago on the podcast, Jay Taylor from On the Square Comics.
Hello, I am Jay.
And now that Mike is gone, we have nothing to talk about. But the big thing from this week, I guess, was one, we had no celebrity deaths, which was in the infancy of this podcast. Every week we've had somebody die on us, so this was a banner moment. We had nobody die.
There were a number of
Darwin Award recipients.
There were a number of people who suddenly populated their Facebook feed with people who had died a long time previously.
That happens.
And suddenly decided to. Did you see that?
Yeah.
That happens like every once in a while. It's like, oh my God, rest in peace, Gary Coleman. And it's like Gary Coleman's been dead for a good number of years, and it's always
Bob Denver's one that always pops up. I see
Bob
from
Denver
Gilligan's
pops
Island.
up. Rue McClanahan from the Golden Girls pops up a lot.
Here's the one that personally offended me. My very good friend, one of the writers of one of my books, put up "Rest in Peace, Christopher Lee." Now, I don't know how anybody else feels about Christopher Lee, but I'm a huge fan of the Hammer movies when he played Dracula.
Absolutely.
And of course, obviously, he was in the James Bond movies, The Man with the Golden Gun.
Scaramanga.
His turn as his turn as Count Dooku. We'll just sort of, we won't spend too much time with that, but he did have a role there. And then, of course, Lord of the Rings. So it's maybe too fine a point on it to say one of my best friends puts up that Christopher Lee died, and I'm like, what are you doing? You're falling into the trap of an internet idiot. So then he continues by making all of the stupid ones. He literally then posted as a Facebook status 6 or 7 other people who had died a long time previously, that suddenly he thought it would be funny if once he got caught in the mistake, he thought it would be funny if he really just played it up as though the whole time he had been kidding around. And I'm like, no, because he needed me to clue him in. Anyway.
I'm sad there's
nobody actually died.
The death of Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah.
What happened? Was he sick?
He was sick. Yes, he was very sick.
But
yeah, that trend pops up like once like every other month, I want to say, where somebody's posting something that some celebrity has passed, and
then there's the ones of so and so died, somebody who's still alive, when they're like, oh, Wilford Brimley died.
Betty White is a prime example.
Betty White's one of those.
Why am I Golden
Chan.
Girls this? Jackie Chan's died a handful of times.
I remember reading the post where Alfonso Ribeira had to tell the internet that he wasn't dead.
It's so funny. Can you imagine being famous enough that you have something like that happen and then you have to go on the internet and post and be like, no, I'm not dead. And then you get people who say, no, you are.
Yeah. Well, you're like kind of in between famous enough, like it ain't going to be big news like David Bowie. But it's like, oh, yeah, I remember him. He died, and then you're like, nah. And then you got like friends of your mom's, or like a friend of your mom's calling her, like, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. And Alfonso Ribeira's mother's got to be like, what do you mean? No.
He's sitting right here. He's at across the dinner table from me.
He was so young.
Now you're making it worse. You're making it sound like Alfonso Ribeiro lives with his mother.
I don't know. He might.
It's possible.
He could just be visiting the family. People do that.
They do that.
I guess.
The mothers call her up, and then she goes, no, he's not dead. He's just Canadian. Better Canadian.
Better Canadian. Remote control.
Better Canadian.
That's fantastic.
There you go. Yeah.
I always whenever somebody starts talking about Alfonso Ribeiro, I'm like, oh, Alfonso Ribeiro from Silver Spoons, and people are like, they either go, A, what's Silver Spoons, or B, they go, no, he wasn't in Silver Spoons. That was Ricky Schroeder. And I'm like, he was his buddy, and so they actually did that gag on Family Guy, I think.
That wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
And like the shithead Eddie Haskell kid on Silver Spoons was Jason Bateman.
Really?
Yeah, it was. Wow.
Man, your Silver Spoons knowledge is strong.
Yeah, Silver Spoons knowledge is kind of frightening.
Yeah. I don't know. I loved that show as a kid. I think just because he was a kid whose dad invented toys, so they just had that mansion full of toys.
And as a kid growing up, that's all you want is a mansion full of toys.
Yeah, pretty much.
I know. I could name so many people from the cast of Silver Spoons. Because there was also I forget the dad who played the dad, what his name was, but then Aaron Gray from Buck Rogers was the love interest.
Yeah. Who's Wilma Deering. Mm.
Yes. And then the grandfather was that dude that used to do the old like investment commercials in the 80s, the like very like dour British guy.
The E.F. Hutton commercials?
Yes,
E.F. Hutton talks
E.F.
people.
Hutton. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Somebody's getting eaten on Mike's front
Dogs
lawn.
are barking.
I'm being attacked by abominable snowmen.
Get off my lawn.
With the amount of snow we had this past, not because that was just horrible.
Actually, I'm being attacked by abominable snowblower borrowers who are returning my pickup truck at the moment.
Oh, there you go.
That's what that dog interruption was.
So, snowblower or no snowblower?
Oh, I go snowblower. I live on a corner with two sidewalks. I got a sidewalk on each side of the house, so I gotta go snowblower.
And I live in an apartment complex, and usually my response is like, I love living in an apartment complex because I ain't got a shovel.
Right.
I had the shovel. I had the shovel a lot.
The thing that
it was just like 2.5 feet. Stop crying.
Yeah, it was 2.5. The sidewalk was 2.5 feet. But the assholes that parked on either side of me that dumped all their snow onto my truck can kiss my fat white ass.
Now I like the shoveling. I didn't have to go to the gym either.
Yeah, that was my highlight. It's like, okay, I can't get to the gym. All right, I can shovel for 3 hours.
Little bit of a workout.
Rock on.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, I'm kind of over snow.
Wait, it only snowed once so far this winter.
I know, and I'm kind of hoping that this is it. I'm kind of hoping that Mother Nature said, "All right, I'm good." Because a month ago it was 70.
Yes, it was. Yeah. Well, it's going to be 50 by the end of the week.
Yeah, I saw that. That'll be good. That'll be good for flooding.
Yeah, we're gonna get flooded. Yeah, we're all gonna drown.
Yep.
We survived. We survived snowpocalypse only to drown.
You know, I was thinking about with being snowed in. I'm like, what are good like snow movies? Like snow, like the horror of snow. And like, there's that one where the world freezes day after tomorrow when everything starts.
Yeah. Dennis Quaid, right?
Yes. Dennis Quaid, and is that Shia LaBeouf in that? I forget who the kid is in that. No, it's just
Jake Gyllenhaal.
Jake Gyllenhaal. Yeah, I think you're right. I think Jake Gyllenhaal.
I remember liking that movie.
I didn't hate it as much as I thought I was gonna, but there were a few things just from like basic Boy Scout survival things that I knew that they were just like doing the wrong thing. We're in the library and there's these big wood tables and chairs and stuff, and they're burning the books.
Burn the books.
And I'm like, the paper's gonna burn. I'm like, and I'm like, and then I'm like, I thought these people were scientists and stuff.
Nah.
I'm like, this is.
They're movie scientists.
Middle of the paper to start it, and then maybe go to the heavy stuff.
Yeah, and then I'm like, you're sitting in giant wooden chairs. I'm like, burn those. I'm like, that chair you're sitting in will burn for 12 hours.
And it's nice laminated
table.
wood.
Yeah. So that was. I mean, the world ending and the whole super frost freezing thing, I was just like, okay, like, to me, I can suspend disbelief for extreme situations for the point of telling the story, but then when it's little things like that, that's what gets me. Like, when somebody gets thrown into, like, and this might just be the electrician in me, but when somebody gets thrown into, like, a telephone box, and sparks go flying out of it, and they're electrocuted.
That doesn't happen. You're telling me that doesn't happen?
That does not happen in real life.
Movies and TV have lied to us?
Yes. You mean the movie lied?
I'll put that in the next comment.
You know, there's another snow movie that, at least in the director's commentary, they kind of explained the combination of terms. There was a movie called, funny enough, it was called Frozen. But it was not the
not that god-awful Disney movie?
Oh, wait a minute.
It is a lovely Disney movie. You just have you have a chip on your shoulder about it. But it is
You don't like Frozen?
I hate Frozen.
Oh, my.
He's never even seen it. He just hates it.
I've never even
he hates
seen
that people
it,
like it, and it's a big deal. He's just being a hipster Disney fan. He wants to like the Disney.
I am being a hipster Disney fan.
He wants to. He's a big Flight of the Navigator and Darby O'Gill and the Little
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'll tell you what.
The Cat from Outer Space any day over Frozen. Well, anyway,
Frozen is actually a decent movie.
I probably will see it eventually, but I think with me, it's just I'm one of those people that when something just is all over the place, I just get sick of it real quick, unless it's called Star Wars. Yeah.
It's that happens sometimes. You can only be, the overexposure of the things you love.
Right.
But this other Frozen movie, I had gotten it from Scream magazine, a horror, sci-fi, fantasy magazine that I picked up at the Chiller Theater convention. The publishers are always there. They're out in the New York area. I forget exactly where they publish from, but they do a ton of DVD reviews, new stuff, old stuff, and when you buy a copy of the magazine, they give you a chance to win a movie, and you you reach it. They have a big bucket, and they have little skulls with numbers on it, and you pull out the skull with the number, and then you win whatever the corresponding number movie is. Or sometimes they have books. Some that depends on what they're reviewing. But I got this movie Frozen, and it had. I'm gonna forget which one it is. There's the Ashmore, Sean Ashmore, that was Iceman, and then he has a twin brother who also does things.
Oh.
There, one was Iceman and one was on Smallville. One was Superman pal Jimmy Olsen on Smallville. And one was on Warehouse 13. I always get them confused. They're twins.
Okay.
But anyway, one is in Frozen. And the concept behind Frozen is people are at a mountain skiing, and they're going for one last ride, and the ski lift gets shut down while they're in the middle of it.
Okay.
And like the East Coast ski resorts at certain times of year when they're only open on the weekends. So they're going to be, it's not like, all right, we just got to make it through the night and then somebody will be here. It's like, oh, nobody's going to be here for 5 days. So it's kind of like open water, but instead of being stuck in open water, they're stuck up in the air on a ski lift in the cold.
Hmm.
And then it gets more and more ridiculous as one guy tries to jump out, and he falls and breaks his leg, and he's hollering and screaming underneath him, and then wolves come and rip him apart in front of...
Fantastic.
In front of Iceman and the guy who's getting ripped apart's girlfriend. It was,
Now, it must be one of these big, like the big ski lifts, like the, what do they call them? Like, it's not just like a little, like, 2-person or 4-person ski lift. It's like a big shit. What do they call them?
I'm not sure. It's just
like
a big. I don't ski, so I don't know an awful lot about it.
It's a big
it's just a 3-person
bench,
thing,
right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. It's just that.
Yeah, it's just a 3-person bench. But that was, when I'm thinking about snow movies, I'm thinking about this stupid movie, and being stuck there, and then running from, and then it just kept getting. It was one of those things that if it was like a Twilight Zone episode, if it was 45 minutes, it could have worked and been pretty cool, or or a Tales from the Crypt. But to stretch it out to like try and get a 90-minute movie out of it. Like, there's not an awful lot here.
Well, that you did answer my question, because I was like, okay, and because I don't ski, so I don't know, how high up in the air these things go. I'm like, well, okay, they're sitting on this. Why don't they just jump off and ski down the hill?
Yeah, no, it's high enough that you can like bust your ass if you do it.
Okay.
But the other thing is too,
I don't ski.
It's like again, it's like if you're gonna make this jump. You don't try and land on your feet, stick in the landing like you're going for the goal and the floor routine.
And he's okay.
You want to land on your ass. You want to spread out and let the force be distributed.
Oh man!
But I'm like, this is just.
Did you see? I might have brought this up the last time I was on. Did you see Snowpiercer? Speaking of winter and...
I have Snowpiercer on my Netflix list. I saw there was a Snowpiercer parody on Robot Chicken that I didn't quite get because I hadn't seen the movie. And I know, last season, Daniel Tosh on Tosh.0 beat the ever-loving shit out of Snowpiercer. But
yeah, I think I remember him doing that.
It's not a great movie, but it has some very interesting visual kind of things, and it has, sort of a social commentary as horror movie, which some of the best horror movies are in that regard, but. It as far as the idea of snow being the enemy and cold being the enemy, that's point number one of that movie, right? Is that it's too cold for anybody to live outside the train, and the only people who are still alive are on the train. And it's pretty interesting. I would, again, I wouldn't say it's like, oh, go see this. Fan of things of that genre. I would say it's worth watching.
I'll have to look into it. I do have a friend who loves watching. I have several friends who love watching cheesy, corny movies with me. So I'm sure I can bump Snowpiercer up a little bit further in the queue. I know the last one we were watching was Madhouse with Vincent Price and Peter Cushing from the 70s, like early 70s, like pre-Star Wars Peter Cushing.
Yeah, well, he was the opposite. Speaking of Christopher Lee, he was Van Helsing to Christopher Lee's Dracula.
Yeah, I just recently watched that Hammer. I just got a copy of that Hammer Dracula.
Horror of Dracula?
Original. Yeah.
First one, yeah. So that has one of the great scenes when he dives across the table and pulls down the curtains. You know the scene I'm talking about right at the end? Oh my God, so well choreographed. It's like a good Dracula fight scene, which is rare.
Yeah. Well, they did a lot of interesting things with those Hammer movies that they kind of amped up the things of the Universal Studios monster movies and made it a little bloodier, made it a little gorier, made it a little sexier.
Yep. And gave Dracula something to do, other than just stand around. I mean, God bless Bela Lugosi, I guess, because at the time he was doing a very interesting thing. But I mean, at least this Dracula actually has some, excuse the expression, teeth.
What a bump.
Oh God.
Lugosi.
I'm fired.
You're never coming on this show again.
Get rid of him.
Lugosi's Dracula was very much derived from the stage Dracula, because Lugosi had done Dracula, the play Dracula, previous to the film. I have the years ago they put out a Universal Studios monster movie set. So it was a DVD, and it was like all the old Universal Studio Draculas. There's like 6 of them on there, including the Spanish language Dracula that they shot
same time.
They shot at the same time with the with the Bela Lugosi Dracula. They shot at night. They had a different crew, different director, different actors, and they shot Bela Lugosi's one during the day, and they shot the Spanish one at night.
I remember hearing about it.
It was interesting. I watched the Spanish one just to kind of pick up on the subtle nuances and a little bit of different things, and how they shot things differently for different audiences then, where it was a little more risque with the brides of Dracula, not like Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula in the 90s. But
there's nothing wrong with that.
No, it was I really enjoyed that film. It might be my favorite Keanu Reeves movie, which is saying a lot.
That is saying a lot. There's Matrix, Point Break.
The Bill and Ted movies?
The Bill and Ted movies. I love that Dracula movie. It's
okay. Fair enough.
And it's also like whenever people start talking about Cary Elwes, it's like he's in that. He's like he's in that. I'm like, yeah, he's got a mustache. Nobody recognizes him.
Is he represented as an American in that movie? Or is he English?
He's English. Cary Elwes or Keanu Reeves?
Elwes. No, Elwes. I know Keanu. I remember his character, but is Elwes represented as American, or is he?
He's British.
He's represented as American.
No, British. He's British. John Paxton is in it.
Yeah, I knew there was somebody who's in there as like the big American, like a Texas guy or something.
He's like a cowboy. Yeah.
Yeah, like a cowboy.
They're all because it's Elway and Paxton are the love interests of the Lucy character, the redhead.
Yeah. Oh,
the first woman that died.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some interesting scenes there as well.
Yes, yeah, that was. If you ever want to see a werewolf sex scene, there's...
There it is. Other than the Howling.
Oh, the Howling.
The Howling, D. Wallace Stone. Oh, man.
You know, D. Wallace Stone is on, and I've talked about this before. I don't remember which podcast I talked about it, but D. Wallace Stone is a reoccurring character on Grimm, and the guy that turns into the wolf, she's his mom. She turns into a wolf, and I'm like, that's... So it was like one of those things. I'm watching it with my wife, and I'm like, that's D. Wallace Stone, and she's a werewolf, and I'm like, and she's like, okay, and she's like, isn't that the mom from E.T.? And I'm like, yeah, that's the mom from E.T.
Oh yeah, that.
And I'm like, oh, there was the Howling, and it's
the Howling.
Never mind. What's...
Sometimes it's better just to let it go.
And the Howling was one of those movies that was like, oh wow, this is cool and innovative and interesting. And then they got into like weird, freaky sequels with that. I think they were like mutant werewolves by the time they got to like Howling 4.
To me, the Howling always felt like a missed opportunity. Like they didn't go. Like there was just too much like Psycho Babo when they got to like the ranch or whatever it was where all the werewolves were. There was too much like, I don't know. I haven't seen that movie in a long time, but it just felt like it sort of wanted to be a werewolf movie, but sort of didn't.
Well, it was a werewolf movie that was kind of tapping into the like that new age medicine then that this is me type of 80s. I'm trying to think of one of those movements that existed then, but they had those like personality building seminars and things that were big then.
Did you say Dianetics?
I did.
I had the Dianetics conversation with somebody recently because you're remember the old commercial?
Yes.
Yes.
With like the volcano and the
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know what the fuck this book's about, but it sounds awesome. There's a fucking volcano. There's like, and it's like, there's some batshit crazy stuff going on in this book. And then when I found out what's in it, and it's like, wait, this is even crazier than.
Yeah, as a kid, I just thought it was some book that like they were just like hype on like WPIX or whatever, and
Dianetics by L. Ron Hubbard.
And like all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay.
Well, here's the great thing about that commercial. At that time, he had come out with Battlefield Earth in the novel. Now, I read a ton of like science fiction and fantasy novels when I was a kid. And my brothers, I have two older brothers and one younger brother. My brothers were always bringing home books. And they were like, yeah, go read this. So I read this Battlefield Earth, and it was awesome. It was 1,000 pages long, so however old I was at that point, that was like an accomplishment to finish that thing. And it was really good. It kind of petered out at the end. And all of a sudden, I'm watching TV, and there's this commercial for this new book that's going to revolutionize the world by the guy who wrote this science fiction book. And I'm like, this doesn't seem like the kind of guy who could produce the kind of book that they're talking about on this commercial. And surprisingly, or I should say not surprisingly, that's exactly what happened. Because if you have a science fiction writer who thinks that he's a prophet of a new religion, chances are that new religion may not hold water.
No.
I'm just guessing. Yeah. So that's my Dianetics by L. Ron Hubbard story.
That's like.
I hope they don't come.
They might come knocking on your door, man.
Tom Cruise is here and he's not happy.
Oh God.
That was, I had something kind of similar, but a little bit in the reverse. I was reading something by Isaac Asimov, one of his sci-fi novels, and then in school I was studying something with science, and I got a science book at a library or had it. It was like one of my mother's books from college or something like that. That was like a textbook, like, you know, it was a, and that was written by Isaac Asimov. That he did both. He wrote actual science books, and then he wrote actual science fiction.
Yeah, his sci-fi, I guess, is very, well, I mean, as much as it could have been at the time, it's you know, very much like speculative sci-fi, like good, quote-unquote, good science.
Yeah, kind of technical. That's like, I was telling you guys a little bit pre-show that I watched The Martian.
Right.
In preparation for watching all my Oscar movies. And The Martian does a good job of kind of giving you a little bit of the pseudoscience of what's going on and kind of explaining like how this is this and this is that. There are a couple things in it that you're going to be like, he's holding the thing together with duct tape. But it's kind of... I mean,
duct tape fixes everything.
Yeah.
my son has a saying.
There's one thing that I did learn from TV. It's that duct tape fixes everything.
So
it worked for MacGyver. The MythBusters did like 6 episodes on duct tape. You know. But anyway, back to the Martian.
My 13-year-old 2 years ago, right? We're sitting there talking about whatever, and we're having a conversation or something. I'm like, oh, well, how you gonna keep it there? And he's like, oh, I'm gonna use duct tape. I'm like, you can't use duct tape to secure that thing that you're gonna try and secure. He says, if you can't fix it using duct tape, you're not using enough duct tape. And I'm like,
that's solid science. That's solid logic right there.
How does an 11-year-old come up with this?
when all else fails, more duct tape.
Exactly. More duct tape.
We were working on something at work, and this guy was explaining. He was showing us an installational process, and he kind of was like, "Oh, then you just apply some duct tape." And one of the guys I'm working with just sits there and goes, "Rabbit tape." And I think I was the only person that laughed. Like laughed out loud, like almost couldn't control myself.
Duck season, rabbit season, duck season. Did he say rabbit tape or wabbit tape?
He said rabbit tape. It was just enough rabbit tape that I was just like, oh, that is, I'm gonna fall off. I'm.
That's fantastic.
Uh-oh. What happened?
I don't know.
I think we just kind of puttered for a second there.
Yeah, we all kind of needed to reel it back in after the
duct tape, rabbit tape.
The rabbit.
Well, anyway, with my so far in my Oscar opinion, I'll give Best Picture to The Martian, but it's also the only Best Picture nominee that I've seen.
All right, so for those of us who are complete Neanderthals and probably haven't seen any of these movies, can you go through what got nominated?
Sure. I got it right here. Even though we did this last week, I'll give you a quick overview. Best Picture. Yeah. No, I know you weren't here last week, so it's you're a special guest, so we'll treat you like a guest. The Best Picture nominees are The Big Short, Bridge of Spies, Brooklyn, Mad Max Fury Road, The Martian, The Revenant, Room, and Spotlight.
Okay, so I have only seen one of those.
Mad Max.
Surprisingly enough.
Right, yeah.
Hey, so it gets my vote for sure, and there are 2 or 3 movies on that list I'd never even heard of.
Some of them are definitely more artsy. Room especially is very dark and very. It's the story of a woman who was held captive for 7 years in essentially a shed, and then her and her 5-year-old son escape, and her 5-year-old son, who has never seen the outside of this room for 5 years in his life, is now out in the world.
Is this a true story? God, please.
I don't think it is, but I'm sure it's based on those stories that you hear.
It's got some.
You know, every once in a while there's one of those stories that some poor girl that got abducted and was held for 7 years or 15 years, or even like those women in Ohio that were held by that guy. You know, it's kind of a familiar story. It's not. I don't think it's based in reality in any truth. Spotlight, I think, is a true story. That's about reporters. This isn't a happy one either. They were reporting on the sexual abuse in the church, and also I guess the little bit of a different twist on this one was the lawyers that kind of started using this as a way to make money, that were just kind of specializing in it.
Yeah. Now, I haven't seen it, but I have read the novel, and I've read a number of Michael Lewis's other novels, The Big Short, and partially that's because of the day job, which we so I kind of have some passing familiarity with that. There was a lot of people who at the time were sure that I would go see that movie when it came out, and I said, I don't need to see it, I lived it. So yeah, what's that?
I don't need to see it. I lived it, Daddy.
Yeah, right. Like, but I wasn't a big fan of that book either, because of the stance he took. It was pretty. How did the movie play it? Was it pretty anti?
I haven't
anti Wall Street, anti Big Bang. Oh, okay.
I haven't seen it. I know it's a Brad Pitt passion project, so I'm sure it's taking the side of the people.
Yeah. He went from Michael Lewis went from being a guy who was a bond trader at Salomon Brothers in the 80s, and his first book, which kind of put him on the map, is called Liar's Poker. And it's about 180 pages, and it's a fun read, and it really kind of gives some insight into what was going on in bond markets in the early 80s and the junk bond crisis back then. But in over time, as his career has become more about, sort of being a market watcher as opposed to a participant, his tenor has gotten a little bit skewed, in my opinion. But no one wants to hear me talk about that.
The getting away from the Best Picture stuff, I did watch. Did I say that I watched Inside Out? The Disney animated one, which it was really good, but it's a pretty sad movie.
It is a pretty sad movie.
But I don't know if there's a lot of emotion in it, I guess. Maybe
that's because that's
a sad movie. Yeah, it's about emotions. It's about your feelings, and it really it strikes a lot of nerves, literally and figuratively. The one that I found on Netflix right now is one of the animated shorts. And
okay.
It's a 16-minute movie called The World of Tomorrow.
I've heard good things about it, but I haven't seen it yet.
It's very high concept. It is through some kind of time travel, the third generation clone of a little girl comes back to see this little girl who grows up to this woman who becomes this clone prototype. Comes back and starts explaining the future to her and what the future will be. And the little girl is the voice of the little girl. I almost feel like they just kind of had random recordings of somebody's child.
Oh.
And then kind of created the animation around it. And
nice.
So it seems very high concept, and it's not. It has some humor to it, but it's very dark humor, and it's very. It's not a lighthearted animated piece,
Yeah.
where it's very far from that, but it has this weird whimsical kind of feel to it that. And it's very basic animation. It's stick figures essentially. It's glorified stick figures and shapes and things. But it tells an interesting story, and it seems like it's tells the story in an interesting way. I guess is more than it's an interesting story. It's kind of it's really just somebody rattling off facts to you, but
okay.
In the way that it does it, it's an interesting piece of art.
And what's the name of that one again?
The World of Tomorrow.
And that's on Netflix.
It's on Netflix. It's in their adult animation section.
And so I'd have to devote 16 minutes to see the whole thing.
Yeah, I believe it was 16 minutes long, and it was.
I don't have time.
Yeah. You can kind of skip through it,
Now, I watched 2015. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. You're saying 2015?
Was 2015 the year that Tomorrowland came out?
Yes.
Is that this past year?
Yeah.
I'm going to go on record as saying I really like that movie. It had its flaws, but especially as you talk about, like, as soon as you said World of Tomorrow, I was like, well, I don't know what this movie, this 16-minute short, is talking about, but if there was a World of Tomorrow that I wanted to live in, with jetpacks and all that kind of stuff that, George Clooney's character was talking about at the beginning of that movie, that's the kind of world I want to live in. That, to me, was again, sort of a little bit of a missed promise on that one, I guess. But
yeah,
the beginning of that, man, I really liked that. I don't know. Sounds like I'm in the minority here.
I haven't seen it. It's been on my to see list, but I just haven't had a chance.
And it's Brad Bird did it, and I have liked so much stuff that Brad Bird has done. He did Iron Giant. He did Ratatouille. Yep. He did The Incredibles. He did Up. Or no, maybe he didn't do Up.
No,
he didn't do Up. I'm thinking of somebody else. I just brought up his credits. Yeah, he wrote Tomorrowland. He wrote Ratatouille. He wrote The Incredibles. He wrote Iron Giant.
I love the whole aesthetic of that he went with for the Tomorrowland and the whole I guess I'm spoiling a little bit for Chris. Hopefully,
by the time I see it, I won't remember. So.
Yeah, I just love the whole idea that, like, oh, the kid was, like, so into the idea of, like, a future with jetpack. Maybe it's just that I love jetpacks. But,
everybody loves jetpacks. I mean,
who doesn't, right? Like, come on. But it was just...
That was one of the coolest G.I. Joe toys, was the little jetpack thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Boba Fett had a jetpack. What is not to like about jetpacks?
Exactly.
I'm sitting in this room with a Boba Fett with a jetpack and that G.I. Joe jetpack.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
I still to this day, if I have to walk someplace, like if I'm like, I'm gonna take a walk down to 7-Eleven to go get this, and I'll be coming back and be like, I wish I had a jetpack, because it's just.
Get me there so much faster and no traffic.
Just to be like, that's like that jetpack thing. And, I guess the jetpack would be a little bit more controlled. But even just that, that fantasy of that ability to fly.
Yeah.
I remember I was walking someplace one time, and I'm like, that fantasy, I'm like, my whole life, just to have that, like, Superman just like jump up in the air and fly someplace. Like, I'm gonna go to the mall go get a haircut and just be like, fly to the mall, or be like, shit, I'm gonna go down to Florida real quick. But I was thinking about it. If you didn't have like, if you just had the ability to fly and not the protective
super durable
powers, the durability of Superman. If you didn't have like a big giant heavy coat and some goggles and shit like that, I'm like, flying would be unbelievably powerful. Yeah. Why you'd be freezing your balls off?
Oh man.
And then I was thinking about it too. I'm like what if you had the ability? What if like people had the ability to fly, but you weren't gonna be able to like fly any faster than you could like walk?
So really all you could do is float.
Well, you could float, but you'd just be like, you're not getting anywhere. You're not moving at an accelerated speed. You're just like, all right, this is the. I mean, you could go as the crow flies, as they say. So if you could cut it at some angles and stuff and go over things.
So effectively, what you're arguing for is that flight could be as bad as a Segway.
Yeah. When people talk about birds and like the beauty of like flight with a bird, and like, oh, look at how peaceful that is, and look at how that must be wonderful, and like you don't know what's going through a bird's head. Maybe it's terrifying every time a bird does that. Like from the first time when they're like, all right, I'm gonna try it. Oh, holy shit! You're like, all right, it's working. Okay, all right.
It worked that time.
It worked that time. And then the next time they're just like, oh shit, you think I can do it again? Like they just gotta build towards that, like, oh my god. And like if they're really like super up high, like sometimes like birds are like way up on towers and stuff. They're 60, 70, 80 feet up in the air. Or like the birds that get hit by planes, they're like 100. They're hundreds of feet up in the air, and you're like, and they're a fucking bird. It's like, if you're not paying attention for a second, you're like, oh, I'm just going to plummet to my doom. It's
the bird.
And then all my buddies around me will eat me. Like, that's what a bird's life has got to be like. Like, you have to focus all your attention on your mobility, and if you fuck up, your friends will eat you.
The bird's sitting there because it's afraid to move.
Yeah.
It's up on top of that building going, do I have to leave?
How the fuck did I get up here?
That's why they're always shitting on stuff. They're literally scared shitless all the time.
They're always shitting. Oh, God.
That's a good enough reason as any.
Oh, God. Yeah, well, anyway, if I had a vote for best Tomorrow focused movie of the past year, I would have gone with Tomorrowland, not the animated short.
Yeah, that was World of Tomorrow. Yeah, that was, in those movies like about the future, like what's the future? What future movie would you want to live in? What movie future? I guess I should say.
Wow.
I'm trying to think. Yeah, that's a good question. I'm trying to think of future movies. And like everyone that comes to mind is like some dark, gritty.
Yeah, like
horrible,
Blade Runner.
You know. That was what I was thinking of. I'm thinking like the first movie that came to mind was fucking Blade Runner, and I'm like, I don't want to live there.
That's just kind of like it's as shitty as now, but you have flying cars and robots. Robots that'll fuck you up when they start to go crazy. You know, like, oh, we got robots that do shit, but it's like as their batteries start to run out, they go insane and try and kill you. It's same thing like Aliens. You're like Aliens in the future, but you still have like a shitty work-a-day job in the future. You know, you're like
You're like out in space doing whatever those people out in space do, and then you get mining for whatever, and then you get the potential to get eaten by an alien. I mean, that's not
like Yaphet Kotto. Yaphet Kotto in Alien looks exactly the same as Yaphet Kotto in the movie Blue Collar, where he's like building cars. It's just like, all right, I got away from this thing with Harvey Keitel and Richard Pryor, and now I'm here. I'm moving freight in space.
What is the future you want to live in? I'll tell you, I like the Tomorrowland future, the one at the beginning.
I haven't seen it, and I'm kind of leaning that way already.
I mean, there are a lot of shitty at like Logan's Run, it's like, hey, it seems pretty cool until you hit 30.
Yeah, you hit 30 minutes over.
So you don't want to live in any future from anything from the 70s.
No, Logan's Run,
any of the stuff out, Logan's, so guys, you're fucked.
Planet of the Apes,
Omega Man, it's all this. Anything with Charlton Heston, anything in the 70s, so that's out.
Oh god.
And then even the 80s, it's like Road Warrior and shit. There were a bunch of those like
Terminator.
Escape from New York.
All right, I'll live in the Escape from New York future if I can be the Duke of New York.
Duke of New York, number one.
Duke of New York, you're the Duke. Donald Pleasance going crazy at the end.
Yes.
Chewing scenery as he mows that guy down.
When he's shooting Isaac Hayes.
Isaac Hayes. Isaac Hayes. Yes. He's literally on top of the thing going insane as the President of the United States mowing Isaac Hayes down, yelling, "You're the Duke! You're the Duke!" Oh, my God.
Oh. I love the chandelier that he has in the car.
Yeah, right.
Isaac Hayes has a Cadillac with a chandelier in it in Escape from New York.
Because why not?
Has anyone ever seen Escape from L.A.?
Yes.
Talk about movies that keep popping up on my Netflix that I've never seen. Is that good?
Pieces of it are. There's parts you're gonna be like, oh, okay, I kind of. And then there's other parts where it's like, where you're like, oh, John Carpenter, what were you thinking? It's just like.
That's one of those movies that like I have Blockbuster flashbacks to because I was working in Blockbuster when that thing came out and it was like.
Yeah, there's it's not as good as Escape from It. It doesn't have that same grittiness. It misses on more than a few notes.
On a scale from 1 to Cyborg, where does it rank?
Who? I would watch Escape from LA before Cyborg. I mean, the thing is, Escape from LA is very heavy-handed in like its cameos, and there's a bunch of like weirdo characters in it. And it kind of I think maybe if I was more of there's a lot of inside jokes for Los Angeles.
Okay.
Bruce Campbell is in it as a psychotic plastic surgeon who has a cult of people who he's done plastic surgery on, so they all look the same.
Oh, weird.
And Pam Grier is there as some kind of transvestite mob boss.
Okay.
Okay. Go
on. Peter Fonda essentially plays himself. That he's like a guy that's surfing, and there's like that's my least favorite part of that movie is Snake Plissken like surfs the L.A. River.
Yeah, they just surf their way in, right?
He like I forget how no he took a submarine in.
Oh, okay.
And he follows. There's an earthquake, so he's following like the freeway underwater. And when he goes past Universal Studios, a shark jumps out at him like the Jaws ride.
Nice.
So there's a lot of heavy-handed like, yeah, and sometimes John Carpenter just kind of takes the money and run. He's they're like you want to make this movie? Like yeah, let's make this movie. I think the one, yeah. And the whole time in Escape from L.A., I think they keep referencing, or even in Escape from New York, too, they keep referencing Cleveland. And there was always a rumor that there was going to be like a prequel, like an Escape from Cleveland prequel. And
is that where the guy left him? Where the character, what's the character, Brain?
Yeah, Harry Dean Stanton's character. I think he left him in Cleveland, yeah.
That's where he left Snake Plissken.
I wouldn't want to leave anybody in Cleveland.
Yeah, right?
Even now.
Yeah, now
now.
It's barely... Yeah, they could just do Escape from Detroit or something. It's the...
Escape from Detroit. It's set in the present day.
Yeah. The first one.
Now, there were some Snake Plissken comic books. I never read any of them. I don't know if anybody ever picked them up. But
I read the first issue of the Snake Plissken comic book, and I don't think I ever got another one. And my favorite part about it was that he had a gun battle at the toll booth right by my house on a parkway.
Oh, nice.
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 I don't remember an awful lot about it, but it was much cooler than Escape from L.A. I remember that.
Yeah.
And that Snake Plissken character, it was like you wanted more out of it, but it almost seemed like if you did anything else, it was you had so much time that the amount of times that I had seen that movie as a kid and just wanted to be that guy, that it was almost anything else that they were going to do with him, it wasn't going to live up to your expectations. Like there was too much fan appreciation going on there. There's too much imagination of who this character is and the mystery of him.
Yeah, well, he's really one note in Escape from New York. I mean, he really doesn't have, for as much as at the end he says, "Oh, call me Snake," call me whatever he says. I mean, he really doesn't have any kind of arc. There's no there's no growth of the character. He starts out, a pain in the ass ball buster, and his whole job is I just want to get back to the world and continue to be a pain in the ass ball buster.
He's when they were making that movie, John Carpenter said to Kurt Russell, just play it like Clint Eastwood in like The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Right.
Like you're barely gonna talk. You really don't give a shit about anything. You're.
Yeah.
And that's all he was doing in that was just being Clint Eastwood.
Just one note. no real no real depth to it. So as much as you want to see more of the world, that's the thing I think that's interesting about that original setup and everything, was that the world seemed cool. I mean, the characters, he's certainly cool, he's tough, but I don't know, everybody's like, oh yeah, I want to know so much more about Snake Plissken. They just want to know more about, well, what gets the world to this far over the edge.
Yeah, and even it's funny too, if you think about it, everybody in that world didn't know. They kind of all knew who Snake Plissken was, but they're just like, I thought you were dead. You know, it was like,
yeah. And he's like, no, he was I'm kind Canadian.
Of a big deal, but he was the Alfonso Ribeiro of. I thought you were dead. No, I'm not dead. Leave me alone.
No, I'm fine.
Tom Jones starts playing in the background. He starts dancing.
I heard.
Yeah, I think the thing to get us up to this point, my answer to the what future would you want to live in, I think I always liked that Star Trek: The Next Generation type of future where people just kind of did what they wanted to do. You know, people like you could pursue what you wanted to pursue in life. You didn't have to have like a regular job because like food, you know, they could make food for you. Yeah, all that little shit was taken care of, and the holodeck always seemed like it was the inevitable future of entertainment.
Yeah.
And for the most part, you could just like hang out in Earth or in that like Earth area, and not have to deal with too much shit. You know, there's aliens that wanted to kill you, but they were far enough away, and there were people fighting them, and you could just be like, oh, I'm an archaeologist, or I'm growing grapes for wine, or I'm doing, you know, you're doing your own thing, and
you don't got to worry about the rest of it.
You don't got to worry about having like a shitty job. But they did never show in that Star Trek like who cleaned a public bathroom in that world of Star Trek: The Next Generation. I always just felt like they must have like trained tribbles to do it. Like,
oh, that's a horrible thought.
That they just enslaved these minor races into doing all the menial jobs of. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that Star Trek world is the most horrific of all of them. Maybe they
don't have toilet paper. They just have a tribble.
Just wipe your ass with a tribble. How not? That'd be awesome. Wiping your ass with a tribble. And it's a sad little smelly tribble walking away.
It's a horrible future, Michael. That's a horrible future.
All right. Give me Blade Runner, I guess.
I'll take Rainy LA. I don't want to wipe my butt with a tribble.
Maybe that Back to the Future 2 future isn't. You know, actually, that was supposed to be. That's not even the future. That's supposed to be. That's present.
That's now. We're past that time, right?
Yes, we're already past that. So we're in the future. Well,
the Back to the Future 2 future was, you know, well, yeah, that's the past now, but, you know, or the present now, but that would have been a good future to hoverboards.
You had flying cars and hoverboards and fax machines.
Hoverboards. And we kind of have hoverboards, but they're not really hoverboards, and they set your house on fire.
Yeah.
And Nike is making those shoes, though.
You know, I do have to say, the first time I ever saw a hoverboard, I was driving home from work, and there's a girl going down the street. It was a nice hot summer day, and there's a girl in some shorts going down the street on a hoverboard, and I'm like, what the hell? I'm like, how is she? What the fuck's going on here? I'm like, is she riding a unicycle? I'm like, she's not pedaling, she's not doing it, she's just like standing there and rolling, and I'm like, I'm gonna get in a car accident watching this broad.
Where did that girl get a Segway without a handle?
Yes, that was the other. I'm like, I guess that's some kind of new thing. And then when I went to Vegas, there were a bunch of people with them in the airport, and they're rolling through the airport on these hoverboards, rollerboards, whatever you want to call them. And one of the I was sitting having some breakfast, and the guy at the place is like, oh yeah, you see a lot of them now, and I'm like, did you ever see WALL-E, the Pixar movie WALL-E?
That's race, pretty much.
Yeah, just got so fat and lazy that they had things to roll them around instead of walking.
Another movie with a horrible future.
Yep.
Yeah.
Look at how depressing the future is.
I'm gonna spend the whole next week prepping for the next show, just looking for a future that's not horrific.
A positive future.
Back to the Future 2 is the best I've gotten so far.
Yeah.
There's got to be a better one.
I don't know. It's tough where there's not like robots that are going to kill you or people that are going to eat you.
We're a bunch of sci-fi geeks. How can we not come up with a better future?
You know what movie I was talking? Here's a future movie that I was talking to about somebody the other day. Runaway. 1982, 1983. Tom Selleck.
Yeah. Cynthia Rhodes.
I don't remember who the female lead was in it. I remember the supporting female character, or the villain female character was what's her name from Cheers? Not Shelley Long, the other one.
Kirstie Alley?
Kirstie Alley, yes. There's a skinny Kirstie Alley is in Runaway. But I was explaining Runaway to somebody, and I'm like, the robot spiders in Runaway were one of the most frightening things in all of cinema.
See it.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if I saw it or if I just wanted to see it really bad.
It is. I can't necessarily say that it's good, but it's one of those things. It's interesting, and it's actually one of those movies that it might have gotten it got pretty close to the future. There's like some robot stuff, but it's not too far away from like where your smartphone is. Kind of like it was robots that were essentially just Siri. If you had like Siri that rolled around.
All right.
And Gene Simmons had a gun that shot smart bullets.
Yeah. Gene Simmons was in it.
Gene Simmons was the villain, yes. That was the one that they say.
I might have to make an exception on seeing this movie then.
Yeah, Gene Simmons is the villain, and they say back then that he cut his hair for that movie. And then it never grew back, and he's been wearing a wig for 35 years.
Yikes. That's a shame. That was a pretty high budget movie though for like an 80s sci-fi. Like that. I mean, Tom Selleck was probably he was pretty big at that point.
Yeah, it was like the height of Magnum. It was.
Yeah. Huh.
I don't know if Tom Selleck might have turned down Raiders of the Lost Ark to do Runaway.
Oh God. Oh, I don't know how he would have been as Indiana Jones.
No, I think he turned down. I think he wasn't able to do Raiders
because of Magnum.
Of his Magnum.
So that's like a known thing.
It would have been a completely different movie.
Yeah, it was a known. I remember years ago hearing that Tom Selleck was up for Indiana Jones.
Huh.
And Harrison Ford.
That would have been a completely different movie.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if that would have worked. He doesn't have the. He doesn't seem like he could just get his ass kicked enough like Harrison Ford does in that movie. Like, if you think about it, Harrison Ford in those movies is pretty much always like losing.
Oh yeah.
Like he's always like, oh my God, how is he gonna ever manage to survive this?
Yeah, he's constantly getting his ass kicked in that.
Yeah, he's just like he never seems like he's the favorite. He always seems like he's the underdog. Whereas Tom Selleck, you can't help but be like, well, yeah, this guy looks like he's gonna win. Come on.
Yeah.
But I think that's might have been why they wanted him, because they were going for that old style cinema idol type of character. When they created the Indiana Jones character.
Hmm.
But I think it was just kind of one of those happy accidents. I mean, same thing with Harrison Ford as Han Solo. There were a lot of other people that were up for that part that they were initially trying to cast it a lot younger. It was going to be Kurt Russell read for it. I think Travolta read for it.
Mm.
There's actually film of the people reading it. It's interesting to see some of the different people that were involved in it. Cindy Williams reading the Princess Leia stuff.
Yeah.
Nice.
Jim Cat from Greatest American Hero was up for Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, I think I've seen that. That demo, or what do you call it, audition tape.
Yeah,
not very good.
Yeah. Years ago, I had bought a VHS collection of Star Wars oddities and stuff like that. That's all like stuff you can find on YouTube now that you used to have to like spend money on it or tape trade with people that have these things, and they're dubbed over like 92 times. You can barely make it out.
Right.
It's how people used to get like the Star Wars Holiday Special, and it had all the old commercials and stuff on it from when some kid was VCR taping a Saturday morning cartoons.
Yep. The what was I watching on YouTube that was like I was like, this is a classic example of something that you used to have to go to. You used to go to a comic show to be able to see. It was Ice. Do you remember ISIS?
Yes.
Remember ISIS used to be piggybacked to Captain Marvel?
Yes.
And now there's like, you can see like almost all those TV shows now are like readily available on YouTube, and there's I don't know what the deal is with the copyright. I guess no one cares, or it's lapsed or whatever, but you can like watch all that stuff on YouTube. And I'm like, there used to be people who were selling these things who were selling bad videotape recordings of these at comic shows for like $20 and $30.
And I'm sure there still is. I'm sure. There's a lot of those shows that I've bought like that. I've been watching Street Hawk for the past month.
Nice.
I want to do. We're gonna have to do a podcast special one day. I want to do one season wonders of like these TV shows that were I was fans of, or people were fans of from the 80s, and they only lasted like a season. Stuff like Street Hawk and Misfits of Science and The Highwayman and
remember the Phoenix?
Oh,
do you remember that? It was like it was a blonde-haired dude who was like an alien, and he had an amulet.
Yes.
And it granted him like superpowers, but there was some kind of I don't know, maybe it was mute or something. I don't know. That was a show when I was a kid. I loved that show, and it was on for. It might not have made it a full season. It probably made it like half a season. But it was like a superhero TV show when we were kids in the 70s. I was like, keep this on, please.
There was an unaired pilot that I have a copy of called Heat Vision and Jack, and it was the late 90s. Ben Stiller produced it.
Okay.
and it was Jack Black and Owen Wilson.
Wow.
Jack Black was an astronaut who was exposed to some kind of cosmic radiation that gave him the ability that it was one or the other. I want to say it was every time the sun went down, he became the smartest man in the world. He knew he had all the world's knowledge.
Wow.
And his head opened up like a computer, and he knew everything in the world, but only for a while the sun was down. When the sun came back up, he was just a normal guy.
And Owen Wilson's just his buddy who was like hanging out.
Owen Wilson's his buddy. Well, wait. It gets better.
It gets better than that?
It gets betterer than that.
Wow.
So he's an astronaut. So NASA wants to like hold him and do like experiments on him, and he escapes.
Of course he does.
And his buddy is waiting for him, as he's going to escape. And the NASA people shoot at him with this experimental laser that when it hits his buddy and the motorcycle that they're going to escape on, it molecularly bonds astronaut Jack Black's buddy to the motorcycle, so he is a sentient motorcycle.
Fantastic.
And that's who Heat Vision is.
So is it just his voice?
It's just Owen Wilson's voice.
And this is live. And this is live action.
This is live action.
Oh my God! Wow.
It's live action. Ben Stiller and I forget his wife's name. They're in the episode. They have a small part. There's a few other people in it that you'll recognize. There's an alien possesses the body of the dude from Ghost, the Get Off My Train guy in Ghost.
Oh, okay.
Who was also he was the science teacher in Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Yeah, I was gonna say a science teacher in Fast Times.
Okay.
He was in he was one of those guys he had that very odd look. He was in a bunch of things just because his face was weird.
And he wasn't able to parlay it like the other guy, who's your
Ben Stein.
Ben Stein. Thank you.
That guy from Ghost worked a lot. Like if you kind of reel back and look at things, you're like, oh, he's in a lot. Going back to like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, you're like, this guy's in a lot of shit, and like a lot of like, oh yeah, that was pretty good. Oh yeah, that was pretty good. He has these small parts. And everybody like knows him from something, but he's in this episode. He's in the only episode of Heat Vision and Jack, and the reoccurring nemesis of the series was Ron Silver, who was the actor who was the bad guy in Time Cop.
Oh yeah, I love that guy. He's like a great smarmy, scummy villain guy.
Right. Ron Silver plays Ron Silver. In this show, that he's a secret agent. He's a secret bounty hunter agent for NASA when he's not an actor.
What?
So he'll be like going around.
That's
like,
just ridiculous.
He's like questioning people looking for Jack Black, and they're like, "Hey, aren't you that guy from Time Cop?" And he's like, "Yeah." And then he'll like snap somebody's neck and like
You've got to be. Wait a minute. This is a fever dream. This is not a real movie. This is just you had the wrong stuff last night.
I can walk away from the computer momentarily and put my hands on a copy of it.
Oh my God.
I have to see if this is on YouTube somewhere now.
I can't believe this didn't get picked up.
It's one of those things, and I heard. I don't remember if it was Conan O'Brien, or I don't remember who it was that said, is like sometimes you write something like this and you use all the jokes in the first episode.
Right.
So it doesn't, there's nowhere else to go. There was there's another, I know this one's on YouTube, I watched it. There's a show that Conan O'Brien wrote called Lookwell that stars Lookwell. Lookwell, and it stars Adam West as a actor who played a private investigator on a popular TV series, and who then tries to parlay that into being an actual private investigator.
Oh,
Okay.
And there's one episode of it. It's hysterical, but they're like, we used all the jokes.
you got no more material.
Yeah.
Huh.
And it's one of those first times where Adam West is kind of doing the goofy Adam West stuff that he does on Family Guy.
Yeah.
He did it in Look Well first.
Look Well. Well,
and both of these shows have all those like 80s action show cliche type of things. Well, Heat Vision and Jack and Look Well. And those aren't even... You got me going from, like, one season wonders. These are just one episode wonders.
One episode wonders. You know what? Speaking of that, I don't have nearly the repertoire of that, but did you ever see the Aquaman pilot?
No, I know that it exists. I've never seen it.
Now,
I might have a copy of it somewhere, but...
I am, in fairness, I am a huge fan of Aquaman, which, you know, that might put me in a precarious spot in many crowds, but I am an unabashed fan. They did a pretty good job of telling an Aquaman story that ultimately some of the stuff became what was in the Heath Corson Throne of Atlantis animated movie, which was very, very good. I don't know if you guys saw that, but you know, just some of the same kind of like angry kind of young guy who's, you know, sort of, you know, has these abilities and doesn't know exactly where they came from. It was, you know, it was pretty good. I don't know, you know, what the reason was that it didn't get picked up, but for a long time you could get it on iTunes free. Like, it didn't cost anything. You could just like download it for free. And then I don't know if it's still on there or not, but you know, it was pretty neat.
I'll have to look into that one. I did see the Wonder Woman pilot from a couple of years ago. What was that?
I think Adrian Palicki is the actress who plays her, right?
I don't remember, but that could be right.
She's Bobby Moore. She's what the hell is the character's name? Mockingbird.
Oh, on yes, yeah. Oh, on S.H.I.E.L.D. Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, I never seen it, but I've seen scenes of it. I've heard it's god awful.
It is. We talked about it on the other podcast, and I think I was the only one that saw it, right, Chris? You didn't see it.
I didn't get to see it.
You'll have to next time you are over my place. We'll have to watch this thing because it's hot crap.
Yeah, that's what we talked about. We talked about it being hot crap.
At the time that it came out, was like the two biggest things in superhero movies were the Christopher Nolan Batman and the Robert Downey Jr. Iron Man movies.
Right.
You know, like, so it was like they kind of like, oh, let's make a Wonder Woman TV show. Let's make it as much like Batman and Iron Man as we possibly can.
Oh.
So it had like nothing to do with anything Wonder Woman.
That's
makes sense to me.
Yeah, let's go with that. That's what all the girls want. They don't want their own hero. Now, did anybody see the? Do you guys see the preview that they showed of Wonder Woman on? I guess it was Legends of Tomorrow or something like that. And then obviously got released.
I walked away. I was watching it. I was kind of half watching, so I didn't get to see it. And I was kind of waiting for it, and I walked away, and that's when they showed it.
Yeah, it looked. I mean,
I didn't get to see it.
I thought it looked pretty good. I don't know if anybody else.
Yeah, I didn't get. I watched Legends of Tomorrow, but I think I fast forwarded through the preview and the commercials.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I love Flash. I don't love Arrow because I haven't really watched it a lot, but when they've crossed over with the Flash, I've really liked that. But I'll tell you what, that Legends of Tomorrow show, kind of a snooze fest, right?
It had a lot to cover to get it going in the first one. I think it did a lot to introduce the characters if you had never seen any of the other shows.
Okay.
I think they spent, to me, they were really kind of ham-handing the origin of who everybody was.
Right.
Instead of just going, okay, the people that are watching this are the people that are fans of Arrow and Flash. They kind of went like, all right, we have to kind of tell a story of who everybody is to get them to this point. That it just took. It had that typical. A lot of these shows, when they start off, it's like we have to. When we have a shitload of characters like this, we have to spend half the episode introducing you to who the characters are, and the story is going to be half-assed.
Yeah.
That goes with it, and that's kind of what you got with that. I enjoyed it, but I'm like, to me, it was the preview. It wasn't a great first episode. It was, almost like this is what you're gonna expect on this new show. Like it should have almost been hosted by somebody. Like if it was a Marvel show, they would have totally had Stan Lee being like, "Listen here, true believers." Yes.
Right. Here's the thing that I don't get about it. Who of the characters who were on that show do you really think is like a great character aside from Captain Cold?
I think they're developing the Firestorm interplay well. You have two diverse, you have two very different characters that kind of have to share that entity.
Yeah.
I think the White Canary character there's a lot there that they can kind of get into, that she's kind of skirting the good and the bad.
Now, see that now again, I'm not a fan of Arrow, so I don't exactly know like the backstory of that character, but that little turn to the wild side there when she's like, "Oh yeah, come on boys, let's go off and raise some hell." I was totally like, "What is going on here?" Like, didn't I just watch this girl like hang out with Dinah Lance and the good guys, and all of a sudden she's with these guys for 5 minutes, and she's like, "Yeah, let's go see if we can find ourselves some trouble." Like, I didn't understand that. That felt.
Her character on Arrow was like, she was a villain for half a season, then she's a good guy, and then she was dead, and then she's not dead, and then she's gone back and forth. They are, with this series, I think they're gonna establish more of an identity for her.
Yeah, to talk about the setup that you were talking about before, they didn't do a very good job of setting her up, in my opinion, as somebody. And then so when all of a sudden she does that, it's kind of like, well, that's kind of an odd turn. And the two who are playing Hawkman and Hawkgirl,
they're very stiff, but
yeah, they're just not good. I don't think they're good.
I was never a big fan of the Hawkman and Hawkgirl characters.
Right.
And they always just seemed so stiff, and like it was like to me, Hawkman was always like, oh, Batman and Flash and Aquaman are here. Oh, Hawkman's here too.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
You know what? To me, the lameness that everybody kind of lumps on Aquaman, I felt should have been directed at Hawkman.
Right.
I'm like, yeah, he was a guy who could fly and had a club.
Yeah.
And I know in the comics he's been written a little bit more interesting, that the Carter Hall character is very much a conservative type of shoot first, ask questions later, warrior type of character.
Yeah.
And I know they did some very good interplay with him and the Green Arrow in the comics, who's very
liberal,
bleeding heart liberal type of character, and it worked that interplay well of Hawkman being very hawkish in his battle opinions, I guess. But the whole, like in trying to explain Hawkman and Hawkgirl with watching the show with my wife, and she's like, "So who are they?" And I'm like, they've changed the origin of this character so many times that it literally became like part of the origin of the character that it's that nobody knows.
Yeah, right.
Who and why, and I'm like, it has to deal with ancient Egypt and aliens and I don't know. And there's reincarnation and magic and
it's magic. Just roll with it.
Yeah, a wizard did it. It's
Yeah.
I have high hopes for the series, like any of the comic book series, I think. But I know the budget on this series is supposed to be phenomenally high, like almost preventative from them to do a second series.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I could see some of that because it wasn't lacking for scenery or for setting or any of that stuff. When they went to 1975, the stuff that you would expect to be there if, like, you're going to have people in 1975, that stuff was there, but
also that might just be because they're shooting in Canada, and Canada always looks like 1975 to me.
Everybody's dead there or from 1975.
Yes. Dead or Canadian. Or 1975.
God. Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure I'll watch the rest of the episodes, but I was gonna say after just a monster hit with Flash, in my opinion, and I don't know if we talked about it, but I watch Supergirl with my daughter. She's 10, and she loves it, and kind of does it's stuck in the villain of the week kind of a thing a little bit, but it's a good show, I think, with some really good actors and some interesting characters. But this thing and the guy playing Rip Hunter, I don't know if he's got the chops to kind of carry off that enigmatic kind of thing. I don't know. I've seen that guy in a couple. He was on Doctor Who. Okay.
That actor. He was one of the companions for a few years, and was one. The series that he was on. He was probably my favorite character. He really developed well, and then I saw him in another British series. What the fuck was it called? He's on a. I can't remember the name of the show. It's a crime drama series that he was on.
Broadchurch?
Broadchurch, yes. Oh my god.
Ooh. Okay.
I love the series. I just couldn't remember the goddamn name. So he was on Broadchurch. He was. So I was psyched to see that he was doing this show, that he was doing something else. But I almost feel like when they were casting it, they wanted to get one of the guys who played the Doctor on Doctor Who.
Yeah.
And
that didn't work.
Yeah, all right, we couldn't get this guy. Let's All right,
let's get the state in.
Let's get Arthur Duvall because we couldn't get David Tennant because David Tennant's busy doing Jessica Jones. But there's something about the Flash and the Arrow. They've been casting people from Doctor Who in a couple of parts. That's where what's his name from Arrow came from. The guy that plays Malcolm Merlyn, John Barrowman.
Okay.
What was a Doctor Who regular? Yeah, but there's also any of these action drama series tend to have a lot of British actors on them playing Americans, it seems.
Well,
I like to call it the Walking Dead theory that.
Because everybody on that damn show was British.
Yes, they are.
Guys, I gotta step away for just a second. Which won't be hard for you. You just imagine it's like last week.
I don't know, man. I ain't got nothing to talk about.
Yeah. I'm about tapped anyway. I'm starting to even get a sore throat.
Yeah. Well, you've been the one talking this whole show, so.
Sorry.
No, it's all good, man. It's all good. So we'll wait till Jay comes back and wrap things up.
Yeah. I am beat.
Yeah, I hear you, man. Were you working out in this shit today?
Yes, I was.
That sucks.
Yeah, it was. It was just cold, and right now, and the thing is, the whole site is just it's muddy now, and it's just gonna get muddy and stay muddy. Now with all this snow, it's just gonna keep melting, and I am going to be trogging through the mud now for the next 6 weeks. Probably until they pave the site. I'm sunk.
I am back.
As Jay destroys his,
Yeah.
Jay destroys his room.
I got a power cord hitting a guitar. I got all kinds of crazy. Oh man.
Well, I think we're actually going to wrap up. So if unless you got it, if that's cool with you.
I have nothing pressing to say.
All right. Well, on that note, I think that's where we're going to wrap up. Jay, you got anything coming up you want to promote?
Trying to think if I have anything new to talk about. Just actually wrapped up the last pages of the book that we were talking about when I was on 2 weeks ago. Heroes United. We had the signing. That went really well.
That's
I don't know if anybody who was listeners were able to make it out, but it went really, really well. Met some great folks there. If you're in that area, definitely check out Heroes Comics and Sports. And then we've got signings and cons coming up in the next few weeks to months or what have you. I can't think of when exactly the next event we're doing. I think there's something in early March that I'm doing, but I don't have the calendar in front of me. So
it's getting to be that time where there's like a con like every weekend.
Yeah, it's you really got it. It's reaching a saturation point. I'm afraid it's reaching a saturation point, but as long as people keep coming, we'll keep showing up and drawing pictures for people.
Exactly.
So, yeah, appreciate you guys having me on, and a great time was. I don't know. I had a great time. So
yeah, it's always fun.
It's always fun. It's
If we didn't enjoy it, we wouldn't ask you back.
Nice.
So man,
we're like, fuck that guy, Jesus Christ!
All he did was talk.
Jesus Christ! Nick, you ever heard of the Phoenix? Like, was he talking Balaam and the Angel? What?
I think he's just making things up.
But
What is
anyway.
this?
Well, anyway.
So
Oh,
anyway,
we love
so-
you.
yeah, we do, man. We do. We love having you on. So anyway, you can find us on iTunes and Stitcher. You can check us out at the Channel Z Podcasts at WordPress.com, on Facebook at Facebook.com/Channel Z Podcasts. Shoot us an email at channelzpodcasts@gmail.com. I'm sure we've got a new hot tag podcast coming up this week with the Royal Rumble happening yesterday. Probably lots of bitching and complaining because that's what we do. So anyway, I'm Chris,
I'm Mike.
I'm Jay.
and we'll see you next week.